In late May 2013, in San Antonio, Texas, the W.K Kellogg Foundation convened national leaders to highlight innovative approaches to family engagement. During the convening, San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro and Ms. Carla D. Thompson, the Kellogg Foundation's Vice President for Program Strategies, joined 80 participants to begin to frame a new conversation on the critical role of families and communities in transforming schools to work for all children. The Kellogg Foundation invited IDRA to share its innovative PTA Comunitario work in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. IDRA is an advocacy organization based in San Antonio with a 40-year legacy of working to assure educational opportunity for every child. We invite you to experience some of what the participants encountered and embraced.
Our sense at IDRA is that South Texas, that the Rio Grande Valley, is ready to transform itself from a place with a history of educational neglect to a place of high educational quality for all kids.
Conference participants had a first-hand opportunity to hear from leaders of the first PTA Comunitario in the nation and from the coordinator of the Equal Voice Rio Grande Valley Network, a coalition of 11 grassroots advocacy community-based organizations dedicated to improving the lives of South Texas families, particularly colonia families. IDRA brought together these South Texas partners, leaders of the PTA Comunitario, Arise, and the Equal Voice RGV network to interact with the Kellogg Foundation national leaders because IDRA knew that there would be things to be learned from those partners and the families they serve.
But right behind it was a concern for education. It's one of the critical aspects of life here in the Valley. It's what families look for, what parents look to their communities for. And there's enormous frustration with it because people essentially put into hawk their livelihoods, especially immigrants who leave what they knew, come to a new place, have to set up a new life, essentially starting from the bottom. And what drives that, 9 times out of 10, most of the time, is a desire that their children do better. And they agree that the way you get better is through an education.
Rio Grande Valley, there are 1,200 colonias. We have almost 1.5 million people living together along the southern border at a time when the southern border has become suddenly an extraordinary play in our national politics. The thing that stuns people a lot is that 80% are legal residents. It's like, well, no, they're all undocumented people. No, that's not true. What is true, though, is that nearly every family has somebody in the family who is undocumented or has some kind of immigration issue. So immigration is huge, but it's not a crippling issue necessarily.
There is, of course, as many of us know, too often, stereotypic notions about Latino parents, in this case, mostly Mexican parents, not caring too much about education, et cetera, et cetera. And our experience at IDRA for 37 years is that it is exactly the opposite, that when given an opportunity and given tools for supporting their children in schools, that parents not only step up to the plate, but really go above and beyond the call.
The goal of Arise is to be able to work with the whole family, with the community, to work with the parents, with the mothers, the women, to empower these women to be able to be their own advocates. And our families, our wish is for our children to have a better life. And we understand and we know that through education, our children will be able to accomplish that goal. About 10 years ago, a little bit more, we started working with IDRA, with Arise, and so we started, having these opportunities to learn more about education, more about leadership. How do we stay connected with the school, and how do we get involved more with the parents and the school? What about a community PTA? And that word community really opened up my ears. Right away, 35 members said, we want to be part of this. We want to engage in this. We wanted, some women were saying, I want to be in school. I want to go to school, but the teacher speaks English. Or I have not met the principal. Or, I went to the school of my child and I was talking to the principal, and to be able to, because my son was having some trouble with the algebra, and this lady went and talked to the counselor to see how she could help her, and the counselor said, don't worry, because children from that community don't go to college. When we started talking at the table and women started sharing their stories, it was very obvious that parents want to be involved.
I remember the first woman that we got in Brownsville involved in this. She came to a meeting. She didn't want to go. She didn't understand it. But I found out the real reason. She says, do we have to have papers? She goes to me. I was like, no, why? She says, well, I went to my elementary school PTA meeting, and the principal stood up, and the first thing she said is, if you do not have papers, out. So she was very happy to be a part of this. But then also her group now draws upon these kinds of experiences when they run into those kinds of roadblocks.
And we organize with a community. We listen what the parents want to learn, and about the system, about the school, who made the decision, how is the teachers, and is the system, it's a system. When the parents know how to do and how the system work, or they have the courage to go and to do what they have to do, learn. So we invite IDRA, and they teaching us about all the credits, the extracurriculums, and it's when we learn at school, they don't have that great education we really wanted, because we are in disadvantage to the other school districts. It's when we take more attention how we can be involved in the school. So we take courage together to learn.
You have seen how participants engaged in conversations with IDRA and our Rio Grande Valley partners. They were challenged to think of engaging families in different and significant ways. They were able to reflect on this new thinking in the context of their own work in family engagement, and they began to make decisions on how they might replicate this innovation to transform their own communities. We challenge you to think about ways that you engage families to transform schools in your own communities. We'd love to hear what you are doing to make a difference.
It is time to end the history of neglect, of educational neglect in this part of Texas. It is time to bank on the strengths of the community, the strengths of our family, the strengths of the educational leadership that is already stepping up to the plate and demonstrating success, and transform what is possible in South Texas. And we think that that can happen, and that actually it can become an example for the rest of the country.